We think of food as nourishment, right? As culture, community. But what if our most fundamental need has also been history's most effective and, well, most insidious weapon? This is a quote from law professor Andrea Freeman, and it really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. It's a chilling truth, isn't it? That a simple meal can become a cage, that a harvest can be an act of war. Welcome to Insight History HD. Together, we will peel back the layers of narratives long locked away in the archives of history. See, for as long as there have been societies, there have been power struggles. And if you look closely, you'll almost always find food right at the center of them. This is the whole concept of food power. It's the strategic use of food, or more importantly, the lack of it, to force someone's hand. It's really about control over people, and it's done by controlling what's on their plate, or whether there's anything on their plate at all. So, to really understand how this works, we first have to look at how food becomes a tool of control. It's a taste of oppression that's been served up for centuries, because, well, the strategy is truly ancient.
Let's go all the way back to ancient Rome. The ruling class there, they perfected this art of social pacification with a very simple formula: panem et circenses, bread and circuses. The idea, as the poet Juvenal saw it, was to keep the massive and potentially rebellious population of Rome just content. And they did it by giving them two things: free grain and these spectacular, distracting games. You see, it was never about good governance, it was about managing the people. A full stomach and a diverted gaze, they're pretty poor substitutes for real political freedom.
Now, these same principles of control were refined and made far more brutal in the modern era. According to law professor Andrea Freeman, enslavers in the United States engineered a complete architecture of food oppression. I mean, every detail was considered. Portions were calculated almost scientifically, just enough calories for hard labor, but never enough energy for a revolt. Food was used to create divisions, hierarchies among the enslaved. Even the delivery itself became a weapon. Serving meals in pig troughs, for example, that was a deliberate act of dehumanization. And then the law backed it all up, making it illegal for enslaved people to grow their own food, to seize even that tiny sliver of independence.
This weaponization reaches its most terrifying peak not in controlling a single meal, but in controlling an entire harvest. This is where you can really see how ideology itself can engineer a catastrophe. A comparative analysis from Queen's University Belfast details two horrific state-made starvations. In Ukraine, the Soviet Holodomor was a direct act of terror. Grain was seized, borders were sealed, all to crush the peasant class. But then you look at the Great Hunger in Ireland. It was driven by Britain's rigid, unbending belief in laissez-faire economics. Even as the potato crop failed, Ireland continued to export other foods. The intent was different. One was direct destruction, the other was ideological negligence. But the outcome? It was the same: mass death. But here's the thing. This is not just a story of oppression. Because wherever food has been used to control, people have fought to reclaim it as a tool of resistance. This is the story of emancipatory food power, where communities fight back to control their own tables. And to see this in action, you have to go to late 1960s America. The situation was just stark. In 1968, the wealthiest nation on Earth was fundamentally failing its most vulnerable citizens. Millions of children, especially children of color, were starting their school day with empty stomachs. And how can you learn when you're hungry? It was nearly impossible. And into this void stepped the Black Panther Party. By 1969, their free breakfast for children program was feeding 20,000 kids a healthy meal every single school day. And you have to understand, this wasn't charity, it was a political act. It was a community providing for its own when the state simply refused to. In the program's success, it was absolutely undeniable. As the historical record from blackpast.org shows, it got to the point where the federal government itself had to publicly admit that this grassroots movement was outperforming the entire state of California when it came to feeding hungry kids. It was just this powerful demonstration that providing for a community's basic needs is a source of immense political power. And the pressure from programs like theirs ultimately forced the government to expand its own school meal initiatives.
So, all of this brings the historical conflict right into our present day. The struggle between food as a tool of control and food as a source of liberation, well, it's still being waged. The language might have changed, but the fundamental battle for the harvest continues. Today, you often hear this debate framed in two competing terms. On one hand, you have food security. This is the dominant idea for many governments and large organizations. It's about making sure everyone has enough calories, and it often relies on a big, global, industrial system to do it. But on the other hand, you have food sovereignty,
And this is the rallying cry for many grassroots movements. They argue that just having access isn't enough. It's about a community's right to control its own food system, to decide what's grown, how it's grown, and who benefits. It's really the modern echo of those hidden slave gardens and of the Black Panthers' breakfast programs.
From Roman grain doles all the way to modern corporate supply chains, the tension is still there. Food is never just food. It is a reflection of power. It's a history of struggle, and it's a profound question about our future. So, if history is on our plates, who holds the fork?
If this journey has offered you a new perspective, support our exploration by subscribing to Insight History HD. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next narrative.